Alright, the time has come. It's all going back in. Transmission has been cleaned up. The engine has been refreshed. Top to bottom, new gaskets and seals. I even painted the valve covers. New clutch, new flywheel, new pressure plate, ACT mono lock collar. The engine harness came out and has been touched up. It's all ready to go back in. So I got some assortment of butt connectors here so that I can replace this alternator cable. I ordered this one, found it on eBay. And I've got some new conduits to replace some of this old junky stuff. Like this one was really bad, so I already took that one off. It looked kind of like this, had big holes in it. I got some smaller conduits here, and I'm gonna wrap all this that I took the old conduits off. That's pretty much it. I'm just gonna run through it all and just go from one end to the other. All right. 1.5 days later, and this thing is refreshed. Took a lot longer than I expected, but it's got all new conduits. I removed all the old junky electrical tape that was just flaking off. One of these O2 sensor plugs was spliced in. I put in all new butt connectors. Tried to clean all these connections up as best as I could. This one in particular was all caked full of grease. And I just put all new conduit, all new electrical tape. You know, this one's got the old conduit still, but it was doing okay. This is all new conduit. This plug right here goes under the intake manifold, and I don't even know what it plugs into. I found another one of the same plug back here. That one doesn't plug into anything. It was basically tied off. I'm not sure. There was one of these injector connectors, I think it was this, that was just really rough. The lines were all cracked. They were all cracked here. So I went out to the old Passport and clipped this one off and butt spliced it in. Let's see, yeah, this ground was all a bunch of bare metal showing, so I rewrapped that. But overall, it was all there. So there's this oil temp sensor. Maybe it's oil pressure sensor. Probably oil pressure sensor. That has this line that goes down to the AC compressor. And this line that plugs into power steering pump. I sprayed out all the connectors. QD electronic cleaner. It's even got photos of plugs. Safe for sensitive electronics. So I gave all the plugs a good spray down with that. And then anyone that still had some caked up junk, I scrubbed them with just a toothbrush and sprayed them again and got them all cleaned up. So this thing's ready to go back in. Patched it up as best as I could. I honestly didn't film any of it because I don't want to give anyone any bad ideas. My electrical skills are non-existent. So I just did what I thought was right. Hopefully it all works. It was mostly all working before I started. So there's a couple of grounds in here. This one in particular that I'm gonna unscrew and clean up a little bit, put it back in. I guess I still gotta wrap conduit around this. This goes to the starter, so this is gonna need a conduit. Put that down there. And then this, I had to buy this. This was a connector for the alternator. Got it off eBay. Seems to be the right one. Just 2 wires, so I butt spliced them into the harness and cleaned up the power connector to the alternator, and that should be good to go. Just gonna reuse my old alternator. I got the one from the other Passport over there, which actually looks like it's in better condition. However, the plug is different. It's got 4 wires instead of just 2. So anyway, wanted to show you that also. 1.5 days on all the electrical stuff. We're in good shape now. We'll be one step closer to putting the engine back in. So I'm working on these timing covers. Made sure everything underneath was torqued the way it's supposed to be. And I got the bottom one on, then you do the left, then you do the right. I didn't really have high hopes for this foam gasket material on the back side of these valve covers, but sure enough, it's this, let's see here, rubber foam. Frost King. I used 3/8 wide. It was honestly too big, but I didn't press it into the groove that it was supposed to go in, and the stuff it's real squishy. You know, like it'll compress real thin. So I got it in where it's supposed to be, and I put it behind this first one and got all the bolts cinched down, and it stayed in place, and it seems to be functioning as a gasket. You can see it just spilling out in some of the places. Yeah, it seems to have worked. I wouldn't have recommended originally, but now I do. Have this thing on in no time. Cool. Well, timing covers are on. Honestly debated on just leaving them off, but I figured best to get them on there. This gasket material actually worked pretty good. It stuck itself good enough to get it in place, and then I cinched it down with the bolts and we're in. I'm just gonna push it off and hope it stops. It'll probably be fine. I think I'm ready. That worked. Whatever, I think that's good. I'm happy. Oh shit. Whatever. We got this hook bolted in. Got a chain going down. Chain hoist hooked to this chain. That's running through the floor. That chain running through the floor here. Got my control chain here. I'm gonna get this up in the air. Alright, well here's the moment of truth. I got this thing jacked up about as high as I'm comfortable. I got the transmission on a dolly, and we're gonna slide it in. Maybe I can get it all the way in. Oh yeah. Alright, it's in a good spot now. Pretty proud of that. We're gonna let this back down and get it resting on the jack stands. All right, check me out. I got the engine up here hanging through my overhead chain hoist. A car positioned underneath it, right about where it needs to be. I got the rear wheels up on these ramps. What I ended up doing was getting 2 tie downs connected up to my hoist. I don't know if you can see the hoist up there. So now the front of the transmission is supported. Now I can slide my dolly out. Well, I only dropped it once. I didn't get it on film, sorry. But now I got a strap going from torsion bar across to the other torsion bar underneath the output shaft. I finally got my jack underneath. That is the balance point of the transmission and transfer case right there. And I still got the front of the transmission supported by the hoist. However, most of the weight is here now. I got this with the 2 holes passing through it, and this thing is balanced. I'm so happy. Now I just gotta get it jacked the rest of the way up into place without it falling on me. Alright, so I'm just trying to inch all this together. I got the fuel line running over the top of it. This needs to end up right about there. So I'm gonna start letting the engine down, and I'll just start wiggling all this stuff into place. So I've got the engine down pretty far. Oil pan is touching the differential down there, the differential housing. We're getting closer. Alright, just want to show you. This is where the slave cylinder goes in. This is the shift fork right here. And if you look up in there, I'll show you from here. Shift fork's got the pole bearing in it right now. So when I put the shaft in the clutch on the back of the engine, here underneath the car, I should be able to use this fork right here to push this into my ACT monolock collar. That's the plan anyway. I'm gonna keep lifting the transmission up, and hopefully I can get everything lined up just right to slide that in there and not disrupt the clutch disc that's in there currently nice and lined up. So we'll see how it goes. All right, here we are. I didn't get the money shot because I was so worried about just getting this lined up right. I jacked the transmission up. I got the engine down as far as I can. I have the engine mounts removed. I hadn't even thought about getting those in yet. And I kind of just eyeballed it, but I looked at the gap between the transmission and the engine, and I tried to line it up as best as I could. You know, once I got the input shaft right hanging out outside of the collar on the back of the clutch, I kind of lined up these 2 surfaces basically between the engine and the transmission, both, you know, vertically and horizontally. Once I felt like I had them lined up real good, I kind of just went for it and I shoved shoved this thing forward real fast, basically as hard as I could, and it got real close. I'm on the ground, right? So I put my knee down back here behind the transfer case, and I was able to push with my knee and give this thing a wiggle, and sure enough, clunk, it went together real easy, real nice. Kind of shocked, if I'm honest. You know, I expected to have to fight this, but it lined up pretty easy and it went in. I'm real happy about that. So, all right, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 8 transmission bolts in. And before I go any further, I want to get the wiring harness fished down in its correct location. It needs to go underneath the intake manifold, out the back of the engine, and then down around the driver's side of the bell housing. The best way I know to do it is to just fish it back through there. So that's what I'm doing. Now I need to get this all routed to the back. And I got fuel line in the way now, so. Alright, good news. I got all the bell housing bolts in, and I got them all torqued. Right now, I'd say the engine is down as low as it could possibly go, basically resting on the axle housing. The back of the transmission is also down pretty low still. While I got all this room, I'm going around and making all the soft connections. I got all the ones back here on the back of the transmission done already. I've got the fuel line reconnected there, and on this side as well. I'm gonna go into the cab and get maybe the gear sensor or something, neutral sensor. Anyway, there's a couple more I can plug in from the top. I'm gonna wait on these O2 sensors until I get the engine and transmission bolted in. But we're making progress. Oh yeah, and I clicked the mono lock thing. I doubt you can even see in there, but I clicked it, so that thing's in. Transmission and engine are together. Just gotta go around and put everything back. It's good news. All right, so I'm just running through the small stuff now. We just got the starter motor in. It's real simple. It's just 2 bolts. It's real easy to get it in right now before you put the engine mount in. See, the engine mount would normally block you right here. So the sooner you get the starter motor in, the better. Well, here's another thing I know I want to get installed before I put the engine mounts on. This is the crank position sensor, and it runs down, let's see, right there. But I know that it's got one connector that goes here, that bolt, and then I know it's got another one down there somewhere. Anyway, I also need to add conduit to it, so I'm gonna get on that later. So next thing I'm gonna do is get these exhaust manifold flange bolts on, and I just want to make sure I get them with a little bit of grease. So I got a toothbrush here with some grease on it, and I'm gonna hit them real quick. Nothing too crazy, but these are definitely prone to getting rusty and sticking. I'm just going like top down, I guess, while I got room for stuff. My impact driver, 3 bolts. I'm gonna guess 17. I'm getting to be a pretty good guesser. Feet first. There we go. My neck gets tired. Probably can't see what I'm doing, but I'm messing it up, basically. Angler works wonders. Oh yeah, much nicer. 37 foot-pounds. Oh yeah, I need the deep one. Idiot. 17 deep on an angulator. My new torque wrench. This thing is huge. With my extender. This thing smells minty. Foot-pounds. 40. Oh yeah, we're still recording. Alright, that's tight. That's what it looks like. Give me the fuck out of here. Alright, so now I'm getting the transmission cross member in place. And you know, I got 1 bolt down there. I got these 2 in. The transmission mount. It's got 2 studs that come down with bolts that go on that bolt it to the cross member here. And I got 1 bolt over there, like I said. Oh geez, I don't know why this would be so off. There we go. I got one. Another one of those tools where it was like, I don't even know what that's for. And then one day it dawned on me and I was like, that's for bolt aligning. Anyway, happy I got that one. See if these other ones will just go. Oh yeah, get one more. That one's a little Alright, my impactolator. That's good news. Well, we're making progress here. The engine mounts are in. Basically 6 bolts each side. 4 that bolt the bracket to the block, and 2 that bolt the bracket to the frame. I got them both in. I got them all torqued. I can get rid of this engine hoist now. And the engine and transmission are back in. This is all really good news. There are these brackets. There's one here that has this foam gasket material. It covers up a giant gap between the transmission and the engine. This is the oil pan, actually. Then there's another one right there. Do you see that black? It's got a bolt right there. And then it's got threads built into it up there. Oh yeah, there it is right there. So it's got threads built into it there, and a bolt that comes through from this side right there. And then there's another bracket in between the starter and the transmission that also bolts to the engine right here. So it's got that bolt there. It's got this smaller number 8 through bolt here that goes into some threads there, and then it sits in between the starter and the transmission. Well, I didn't take them off before I tried to remove the engine, so I bent the shit out of them. And to top it all off, they have a gasket material. So they're mainly just blocking plates that block dirt from getting in between. There's huge gaps here that lead, you could see straight into the flywheel and the clutch. Same on this side. If you left these covers off, you'd get a ton of dirt all up in where your clutch is. So anyway, those are something to note. Definitely take them off before you try to loosen up anything between the engine and the transmission. That's my #1 piece of advice here. They're small little brackets, but if you don't get them off first, you're gonna have a bad time. As you can see, I am underneath the car and I'm working on this slave cylinder. I got it basically all cleaned up. You know, I didn't go nuts on it, but it's nice and clean. I made sure that I never pushed the clutch pedal this whole time. So here we got this is the rod that it pushes on. I've greased up each end, and I even put some waterproof grease all up in there. Anyway, it's real simple. That goes in there. It goes... Cool. Why don't you hang out right here and keep an eye on that? And I'm gonna go hit the clutch pedal for the first time in, I don't even want to admit how long it's been. It's been a long time. We'll see how this goes. All right. My ACT mono-lock collar seems to be holding in place. That's good news. Just some random bolts in my bolt bin that go on these studs that hold this bracket and fuel line stuff to the cross member here. So I'm gonna get those covers on around the clutch. We got all the oxygen sensors in and plugged in. You know, they were working before I took them out. I got one more here out of the old Passport. This was a downstream one. Not sure it really makes a difference. This is the better Denso brand. Next thing I'm working on is the shifters. So I just got this transfer case shifter in. As you can see, it's nice and shiny. I cleaned it up pretty good. Note the orientation of the bend. Took me a second to figure it out, but it's pretty simple. I'm gonna work on this regular shifter. I already cleaned down in there. I didn't clean it super good, but I did clean it. You know, for the sake of time here, I'm just gonna keep moving on this. I'm not gonna clean it anymore. I'm just gonna grease up the other end. Show you what the other end looks like right now. The transfer case shifter was actually real clean. It had a gasket on it. This one, however, is not clean. It's greasy. It's gross. It's all caked on there. But all the pieces are there, so yeah, I'm gonna spend some time cleaning this thing up, get it reinstalled. It's just literally 3 bolts. So I think the main thing not to lose is that tip there. If you lose that, it would be extra janky. So this thing was already pretty wiggly, and it's still pretty wiggly, which I didn't expect it to get any better, but it's gonna be having an issue. That's first. Second, there goes, third, fourth, fifth, reverse. I guess that's fine. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Shifters are in. I put this trim back in, center console back in, got that trim in. No radio for now. Check back to one of my previous episodes where you can watch me swap this whole dash and clean all the shit out. That was a process in itself. We got a new heater core in there. Alright, so I'm working on these fuel lines right here. I got new line to connect where I disconnected the old lines. I'm using the old insulator there. The feed is 1/4 inch, and I got these new clips. I'm gonna put that on the feed. This is what the old lines looked like. This is the old feed. This is the old return. They were all gunked up and gross, so I got a new line. This is the return. This is the feed. I'm gonna get all that installed. So there's this heater core hose that goes from the pipe that's running underneath the intake manifold. Yeah, 5/8 black heater hose. And it runs from this outlet or inlet, whatever, down here on the pipe up to this manifold here. And you know, I don't want to kink it, but I don't want to make it too short, so I'm gonna go like right about there, maybe a little longer. That seems pretty good. I used this old insulator from the old Passport. I'm gonna call that one good. We're gonna work on this hose that goes from here up to the throttle body. Alright, that's on. So this goes to the throttle body. There's another little one that comes up here, goes to the throttle body, and then the heater hoses are done. That's good news. Alright, so the last heater hose I got was this one right here, and that one also goes to the throttle body. I'm getting ready to start putting this intake manifold back in, and I realized my EGR tube was still clogged. So I went and assembled my little pick here, and I got in there and started picking around, and I got some chunks out, and then I went and got this. So I stuck that down in there, and I got it up a little further and got a bunch of chunks out. Then I went over to this side, and you know, that's got a 90 degree right there. So I realized there's a little plug on this end. So I got that out and fished this down in there. You can see that's getting pretty clean. There's not too many chunks left. So then what I did was went over here, got this pointed out the window. I don't want none of this junk. See how black and gross it is? Covered this port with my finger there. I hit it with some brake cleaner. Doing a real good job of cleaning this. And then I got my compressed air here, and I just started blowing it out. But you know, so yeah, I pressure washed this thing once already, and it did a really good job of cleaning it. But I'm actually happy that EGR tube cleaned out as good as it did. So I'm gonna finish scraping this gasket material off, and then I'm gonna hit it with some degreaser, and then I'm gonna power wash it again. Good old power washer coming in the clutch. I'm actually real happy about that. Came out nice and clean. I actually shot with the red tip down in the EGR tube, and it was coming out the other side real smooth. So I'm happy to report that that's nice and cleaned out now. Compressed air, get all the air out, let it dry out. Finish cleaning off the gasket material. Still a little bit left there and there. It's ready to go in. I greased all these little spots where the butterflies ride on. I greased these connections here. Now it rides nice and free. So I've had this kind of sitting like this for a little while, and there was a little bit of debris that fell down there. I covered all the spark plug holes and intake holes with these rags. They were clean when I started, so there was some debris down there in the valley. I vacuumed that out. I think I've got everything out of the way. I'm gonna go ahead and try and bolt this fuel line up to the back of the intake manifold the way it's supposed to be. I got some bolts off the old Passport. The thing wasn't bolted up when I took it apart. So anyway, I got the wiring harness all out of the way. I got everything in place that I need to before I get everything connected. Actually, Here we have the intake manifold gaskets. So I believe this is the upper. Oh, there's a new throttle body gasket. These are the lowers. These are metal and rubber. Here are the last ones. They were totally freaking cooked. Happy to replace them. I got it lined up. Oh my goodness. Just dropped my socket in the valley. You bitch. If anyone wants to buy me one of those low profile electronic controlled ratcheters, I wouldn't not take it. Well, that's good news. Now I can drop this intake manifold in place. Gasket is in place. Everything is clean. It's all ready to go. Oh, baby. Oh, yeah. Now we just hope all of our coolant tubes are not gonna leak. No leaking. Not allowed. Well, this is the first time I thought about this EGR tube in a while, and sure enough, it was all clogged. So I sprayed some brake cleaner down there, I sprayed some degreaser down there, lots of chemical cleaner down in there, and then I took it over to the power washer and red tipped it. And sure enough, it ran pretty clean, so this thing's free flowing now. So there's a plug back here. I believe it's this one that needs to go into that plug right there. This is the crank position sensor, and it's in a tight spot up against the firewall there, but I want to get that in before I go any further. Alright, so I'm going to get this fuel rail in. You know, I was a little hesitant on using these injectors. I kind of was thinking about getting some new ones, but once I cleaned them up, they look pretty good. I looked at the old Passport to see if those ones were going to be any better, and they totally weren't even close to better. The O-rings were all torn. These ones don't have a brand name on them. Oh, actually they do. These ones are Delphi, so these ones are actually not bad. So I just put some acetone on a rag and went around and cleaned them up pretty good. And they actually look pretty good. So I'm gonna get this fuel rail installed. I gotta get the feed line 1/4 inch and the return line hooked up with their constant tension hose clamps. Well, the fuel rail along with the fuel injectors are in. Manual focus. Near. Alright, this right here is a number 6 Allen bolt. This right here is a number 6 Allen key. Because of this orientation of wrench, you don't put Allen keys up close to something because then you can't get an Allen wrench in there. I had to make this Allen wrench in order to get into this bolt way back here. This is a normal size 12 bolt that I stole off the old Passport. It has the same thread pattern and about the same depth so that I can use something like this in order to get it on and off and not have to frustrate with an Allen key. Whoever designed that is dumb, and I'm fixing it. Alright, quick recap on all the things I just did. I got this vacuum sensor in. I got all these vacuum lines rehooked up. I replaced this vacuum line. I bought a whole pack of different sizes and it's red, but I put the old stuff over the top of it. I got this breather valve reinstalled. This is stolen off the old Passport. I got these grounds installed. Got all my injectors plugged in. I stole this off the old Passport and threw it on real quick. I believe it's a knock sensor. Got that installed. I got some silicone on there because it had some bare wire showing. All these injectors are plugged in. I got the exhaust gas recirculation installed, plugged in. I'm just putting this, I think this is a injector controller potentially. Getting that put in right now. I got this manifold absolute pressure sensor installed, plugged in. You know, this thing's getting pretty close. Well, I don't even remember the last time I updated you, but we got all the spark plugs in. We got the coils in. Let's see here. We got the brake booster hose in. We got the throttle body on. Still got plenty to do. I put some of this Stabil fogging oil down in the spark plug holes before I put the spark plugs in, just to make sure we got some lubrication when we go to run it. I also made sure to use my oiler before I put the head gaskets on and the heads on, so it's definitely got some oil. It's not like it's going to be running dry, but I also lubed all the camshafts up before I put the valve covers back on. So they should be, you know, in good shape. I got all the connectors connected, not missing one of them. That's good news. Well, I got the alternator in. Took me way too long. Well, it's definitely slow going, but we are making progress here. I ended up replacing this line also. I had these switched. We got the power steering pump in its final location. We got the AC compressor in its final location. I replaced this brake vacuum hose because the old one was all crusty and stiff. It's not exactly bent perfectly, but I think it'll work fine. Well, after many frustrations, I have most of the accessory assembly reinstalled. I got the power steering pump reinstalled. I got the reservoir reinstalled. I got all the lines run, some new, some reused. I got the crank pulley reinstalled, which I still got to torque. I got the fan clutch bracket installed. I got the idler pulley installed. I got the tensioner pulley installed. I got the heater core hoses installed. And I'm gonna get the radiator in. Then I'm gonna fill it with oil and water, and oh dang, I still gotta get the air box on. I don't really need that, but I might as well go all the way. Anyway, we're so close. I'm gonna keep going. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has out. The time has finally come. See if this baby will fire back up. We got the engine in. We got it filled with fluids. All I gotta do still is put a battery in it. This thing has been a freaking nightmare. I've gone nearly insane trying to fix this thing, get it going. Without further ado, I'm gonna throw a battery on this thing. We're gonna see if she fires up. The battery is in. The fluids are in. It's got a new starter. Fuel pump fuse has been replaced. This thing was running before I started tearing into it. Everything has been put back, as far as I know, torqued. I'm ready to go in there and turn the key. I hope it just starts first try. There's no reason it shouldn't, you know? It's got fuel, it's got spark, everything's plugged in, all the sensors are plugged in. Please. Fuel pump pumpulated, I gotta push in the clutch. It didn't just start. Well, I went to turn the key and nothing happened. So I've narrowed the issue down to something going on with my actual ignition at the steering wheel. I've confirmed I switched the headlight relay with my starter relay, and the headlights are all working, and the headlights still work after I switch the relays. So I know that it's not the relay. I have the relay currently removed. I'm gonna go ahead and stick the key in. See, I can get it to stop beeping. Starts beeping again. Anyway, turn to the run. Fuel pump kicks on. Get a bunch of lights. I don't have a voltage indicator, which is unfortunate. I don't have an oil pressure indicator, which is also unfortunate. All the lights I get right now are this. When I turn the key, you know, obviously the relay's out, so nothing. So now that I got it in the run position, got it in neutral. Just double check. I don't even have the drive shafts in right now, but go on over here and get my starter jumper. We're gonna stick it. I already confirmed by looking at the I'll stick that one in there. I looked at the relay itself to see which wires jump this. So I'm gonna get it started, hopefully. We got no warning lights, which I assume means we have oil pressure. Well, we're up to temp now. I haven't gotten any check engine lights. I got a vibration for sure. I got no registration on the speedo in first gear. There it goes. Maybe it just needs a little break-in period. Oh, now we got a check engine flashing. It's definitely got a bit more of a vibration than I'm into right now. Coolant's mixing. I think it's flowing. Let's see if I can get some heat. We're holding that good temperature. I don't got any check engine lights on right now. Clutch is making noise. Oh, not liking that. Alright, let me get my code checker on there and see what's going on. I don't know, something ain't right. Well, we're back in the shop, and I'm looking at a fully, completely reassembled Honda Passport engine bay. She runs not very well. You see, I got this thing all put back together, and I was so confident I did everything 100% right that I just went in and turned the key expecting it all to just be peachy, and it wasn't. It was running pretty good, at least so it seemed, and then I'm getting check engine lights on the thing. It's running rough, it's shaking, I'm getting a random misfire code. I had it running, and you know, the coolant's circulating, it warms everything up, so I thought everything was firing, it was just randomly misfiring. And I realized this bank of cylinders has a cold exhaust. This bank of cylinders has a hot exhaust. So now I realize that it's this whole side isn't firing. And so then I'm poking around on the forums trying to figure out what's going on. It finally hits me. I did the timing wrong. So now this one, apparently you gotta line up a timing mark, then give it a quarter turn, and it's in the right spot. I thought you rotate it until it clicks in the final spot, which is wrong. You do that on the right bank. Left bank, you have to get it to the timing mark and then give it a turn to where it needs to be. So I'm a quarter off, and this whole left bank, driver's side bank, isn't firing at all. So what I gotta do now is tear it all back down to the timing set and retime it. Which, since I just did all this, shouldn't be that big of a deal. Well, that's all for today's episode. Consider checking out some of my previous episodes. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing so you can join us next time. Thanks for joining us.